Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lisa Wong. I'm the mayor of the city of Fitchburg. This is 1 week in terms of the response to the ice storm that happened on 12/12. That was last Friday. And the city of Fitchburg still remains in a state of emergency, and we will remain in a state of emergency until further notice. The situation in the city is very critical. The extent of the damage to our trees, to the infrastructure, to the power infrastructure has been quite a lot. And what we found is that with the extent of that damage, we still remain a city that has a significant number of people without power as that infrastructure is being restored, and also having one of the largest shelters, actually the largest shelter in the state currently, with over 100 people consistently each night. I'm happy to report that the Red Cross has taken over the shelter operations from the city, and we've been requesting that resources, and we thank the American Red Cross for their assistance, as this shelter in Fitchburg has become a regional shelter, and we are taking people in from a number of different communities, and we provide a service to those who are in critical need throughout the region. I also want to reiterate our 3 major goals in the city. The first is the protection of life. The second is the clearance of roadways so that our emergency vehicles and personnel can get throughout the city. And the third is power restoration. The city's major priorities are the first 2, and we have a representative from Unitil, George Gantz, who is here to talk about power restoration. In terms of the protection of life, I have to say thank you to the number of emergency personnel in the city, the Department of Public Works, the Police Department, the Fire Department, for their extraordinary work and efforts over the last week. Their work has been very extensive. They know the streets, they know the people in the city, and they have been working hard in terms of wellness checks, in terms of going door to door, everything from pumping cellars to calling people that they know, to responding to any emergencies as quickly as they can. So they have done a tremendous job and will continue to do so with the inclement weather that we're seeing today and that we will be expecting over the weekend. In terms of the clearance of roadways, our DPW crews have been phenomenal, working 24 hours a day, not just in the response to the ice storm, but in preparation to the snow that you're seeing today. They spent a significant part of their morning sanding and salting in preparation for the snow, and we have crews out there plowing as we speak. We ask citizens for their cooperation in these efforts. In terms of the protection of life, we ask citizens to let people know about shelters, to seek shelter if they need to. We know that there's a number of people that have been without power for quite some time. We want to make sure that people are warm and safe, and they know that they have a place to go. We have transportation to the shelters. We ask people to call the senior center where the shelter's location is located to arrange that transportation. That number is 978-345-9598. They're also seeking volunteers, so please stop by if you can volunteer. We're also asking people to check on their neighbors. We know that a number of people are not wanting to leave their homes, and we know our neighbors best, so please check on them. Make sure that they have the numbers, they have the resource, they have the access to the information that they need to keep themselves warm and safe. In terms of road debris, we ask citizens to keep their debris in their yards. We will be arranging different means that people can dispose of that wood debris, but we need to keep that debris off the roads so that our plows and our road clearance crews can do their best. As of 1 p.m. today, when the snow started to come down heavily, we had just about every single road in the city cleared. There are still some roadways that need some work, but with the snow coming in, we did have to divert some crews. But our crews went around with the public safety personnel to make sure that at the minimum there was access to those streets for our emergency personnel, fire truck, police cars, ambulance, making sure that those roads were passable enough for those emergency vehicles to go through. We also do not have reports at this time as to whether schools will be closed on Monday and Tuesday. We're going to continue to make that determination. Right now, all of our schools have power, and the roadways are clear to those schools. But of course, you know, the most important thing is that We make sure that people going through to the schools, the buses, are in a safe place to transport children, and we want to make sure that all of that is in order before returning kids to school. And we will notify the media sometime over the weekend as to our decision about schools on Monday and Tuesday. In terms of the third piece, in addition to the protection of life and the clearance of roadway, is power restoration. And our crews have been out there working to clear roadways, clear limbs, and our representative from Unitil is here to talk about any updates regarding in relationship to power restoration. Their crews have been out there. I've seen them personally, and what I found is that they're all working very hard. And these work crews are coming in from all over the place. They are facing very similar situations that we are. They're away from their loved ones, their family. A lot of them are coming in from very far away places, Tennessee, Ohio, and we ask everybody to cooperate with them fully, to carefully navigate the roadways around them, to keep your debris away from them, and if you're seeking information, to go through the appropriate channels. And the number here, the non-emergency line, the hotline that the city has set up, that number again is 978-343-4801. I'm now going to turn over the podium to George Gantz, Vice President over at Unitil.
Thank you, Mayor. We're on day 9 of a most extraordinary and difficult recovery process. The work has been very hard. The crews are tired, but they are dedicated to their job, and they're going to stay on the job until the work is done. Overnight last night, we improved by reducing our outage numbers by about 40%. We've had crews out there on key circuits all day today working very hard. And we expect when that work gets done, we'll see some additional improvement in those numbers. At this point, in the city of Fitchburg, we have crew assignments identified that will hopefully, again, weather permitting and the type of work we encounter permitting, be done with those major accounts tomorrow morning. That will then put us in a position of deploying crews to start addressing smaller pockets of customers that are still out and individual services that are still out. In the city of Fitchburg right now, we're at about 2,200 customers. When we're done with the circuit restoration in the city, we're expecting that number to be somewhere below 1,000. Very difficult to estimate that, but we're hoping as we make progress it will continue to improve the circumstances in the city. I did want to address a couple of things. One of the difficulties we've had over the past week is with rumors. Rumors are not helpful to the situation, and some of the things that we've heard over the course of days have been, from our perspective, ludicrous, but nevertheless, people are afraid, people are frightened, and they pass things along, and then the rumor becomes a significant problem, operationally and otherwise. There was a rumor this afternoon, I just heard about it before I came into the meeting this afternoon, that Unitil was going bankrupt. That is not the case. We are fiscally sound. We have the financial resources and all of the resources we need to continue doing the restoration process, completing the restoration process, and we will continue to provide utility services. It has been very difficult, we know, for people to get a hold of the company. We have been monitoring our telephone systems, our voice response system, our call center operation. All systems are operating, functioning. They're doing the job they're supposed to do. The number of calls that are being generated into the system has been far in excess of what the system was designed to do. That results in busy signals. Occasionally the trunk line overloads and you'll get a signal to try your call later. It has resulted also when people do get in and extensive times in queue. We realize that's an aggravation. But all systems are functioning, and the phone number to contact the company remains and will continue to be toll-free 888-301-7700. We would like to ask the public to be helpful by using that number when they are trying to obtain information or report something to the company that is significant. We know that customers have called because they're seeking information that we cannot provide. We cannot provide specific time of restoration estimates to individual customers. We simply cannot do it. It's impossible. We will not provide information to customers about crew locations or crew activities. We will not provide specific information about the status of work on individual streets. The City of Fitchburg has an excellent process that they've employed to collect that information, to provide that information. So there is information that we cannot provide to customers, and we ask customers to try and be thoughtful and to refrain from using our telephone systems for things that we simply cannot provide. If we can do that, then the response times of our system, the access of our system will radically improve, and that will significantly enhance our ability to be responsive and to get this crisis and this emergency over as quickly as we possibly can. Finally, we have been talking all week about the number of crews we have deployed, the impossibility of our getting additional crews. We've had this week, for most of this week, we've had 75 crews, tree crews and line crews, dedicated to our service territory of Fitchburg, Ashby, Lunenburg, and Townsend. We have deployed those crews on a 24-hour rotation basis. They've all been working really hard. They've done a super job. We believe we have deployed them as efficiently as we could to bring the maximum number of customers back in the shortest amount of time. Just before I came into this meeting, I was given word that we have reached an agreement with National Grid to obtain some additional crews. Those crews need to be formally released, formally brought into Unitil. They'll need provision. They probably need some sleep since they've been working all week just like everybody else. We're hoping to see a deployment of additional personnel from National Grid within the next, by tomorrow morning, I would say. I don't have any more information than that at this time, but we are delighted that after trying all week, as other utilities were, to find additional crews to come in to help, that it looks like we're finally at the point of being able to bring some in. That's my update. Thank you very much.
We'll now take questions.
Mayor, I was wondering if the ice storm that happened last week is hindering any efforts to clear the snow that is falling today.
They're certainly related, and they're related on a number of fronts. First is that a number of the crews, both city crews and private contractors, are the same ones that have been working all week on the response to the ice storm, and they're the same ones that are working on the snowstorm that is happening today and the one that we're expecting on Sunday. So the we need to make sure that even though we're working 24 hours a day, that we do have rotations where crews can rest so that when they are working, they're at their maximum capacity. And it was a major goal of ours to have the roadways cleared in time for the snow event today. And with 244 miles of roadway, and as we all know who live here in Fitchburg, the terrain is probably one of the most challenging terrains in the state, if not the country, with the hills and the rural areas and the highly urbanized areas. So it's certainly been, with having to clear the roadways of the trees, the power lines, those have been really taking away from resources that could have been resting and could have been utilized towards a snowstorm. But right now, the snow is something that we know how to do. We have the crews, the private, public, and they've done just a tremendous job in making sure that the roads were even cleared to be able to address the snow.
So were you able to clear all the roads before the snow started falling today?
There are a handful of roadways that still have some partial obstruction. Those are areas that we have carefully mapped, and they're areas that our public safety personnel are all very much aware of. So those areas are areas that are not highly traveled. They're areas that we're aware of, and those are areas that we're going to target as soon as we're done with the snow event.
Do you know if any crews have been hindered this afternoon because of the snowstorm? And that might be a question for you.
Address that.
Yeah.
No, we have had no problems with the snow. The crews are used to working in difficult weather conditions. The only circumstances that would be a hindrance is if the snow and the wind reaches a point where visibility goes to zero and they can no longer see what they're working on. That has not been a problem so far, so we're continuing to make good progress.
You had said yesterday you were hoping to get 95% of the circuits back by today. It sounds like you didn't quite get there.
We did not quite get there, and what we're finding, and we've compared notes with other utilities with similarly very heavily devastated areas, we're all facing the same problem, and that is the crews get into an area to do the repairs. We've done an estimate of the time to restore based upon historic practices, average amount of time to restore a trouble, historic practices, so that's how we make our estimates of how long it's going to take. What we're finding is the damage is worse than anybody has ever seen before. The crews are telling us they've never seen anything like this. So rather than having, an item or two, a pole, a wire, a few other items that they have to get cleaned up and then they're done and move on, the whole infrastructure has been destroyed and needs to be put back together. So we had cases where there was one incident where I know we had a couple of crews involved. The expectation was that the job would be 4 to 6 hours. It took 12 hours to complete because of the extent of the damage. If you look at all the utilities involved in both New Hampshire and Massachusetts, all of the restoration estimates have been moving out. They've all encountered the same conditions, and it's all the same difficulty.
Right. I was wondering if you could comment. It seems like Leominster has almost full power restoration. I know they're a different company. Why would it be taking longer in Fitchburg than in Leominster?
Well, it's taking longer in Ashby than it is in Fitchburg, and it's taking longer in Lunenburg than it is in Fitchburg. We have communities in New Hampshire that are going to be taking longer. Public Service Company of New Hampshire was reported to say that they hope to have most of their customers on by Christmas, but there are going to be a few that will probably extend beyond that. Thankfully, we're in better shape than that. It's a matter of weather. It's a matter of the nature of the trees that are surrounding it. Some of these factors are completely unpredictable. Why, one street got more damage than another. As we're monitoring the situation across the other utilities, talking to them on a regular basis, all the utilities in terms of their restoration efforts are in roughly the same boat in areas that have been similarly damaged. So, and I think the other thing is, from a technical standpoint, the reports we're hearing is that those restorations are accomplishing an extraordinary amount of work in a short amount of time. So not only will this event go down on record as being the worst storm event with respect to the electrical infrastructure in New England ever by a several-fold factor. It will also go down on record as the most amount of electrical work ever performed on anyone's electrical system in a short period of time.
So was the damage worse in Leominster than it was in Fitchburg?
The damage was worse in Fitchburg than in Leominster.
Right. Okay.
Do you think power will be restored by Christmas? You just mentioned
Yes.
some.
Yes, we're confident that power to everyone in our service territory, New Hampshire and Massachusetts, is going to be up before Christmas.
Even those that have an individual connection problem? If they
Yes.
have the electrician come in and do the
Yes.
work?
Yes. If there are circumstances where the damage can't be repaired by the homeowner, for example, the house has been severely damaged, those are exceptions, but all of the work that we are responsible for doing to bring service back to all of our customers definitely will be done by Christmas.
Mayor, real quick, I was wondering, right after the storm hit last week, sort of what the initial response from the city was. When did you start calling out for help, and what sort of help did you call out for, and who did you guys call?
Yep. I love how you asked me 10 questions at once.
Sorry.
So let me try and answer them all, and let me know if I've forgotten any.
Okay.
We initially declared a state of emergency. I told our staff that we were going to declare a state of emergency at 2:30 a.m. That official declaration went out at 3 a.m. on Friday morning. I believe we were one of the first to do so. And that declaration, I was here at 3 o'clock in the morning, and we began immediately in assembling a team, assembling our emergency operations center, calling everybody in terms of our key personnel, fire, police, DPW, Board of Health, even our IT divisions, ancillary divisions, so that we can have a very efficient operation. Phone lines were set up immediately, hotline numbers, people who are our main points of contact to the public, like our dispatchers, were informed immediately. That was actually the first room that I set up operation in, so that they being the first line of contact to the public, knew exactly what was going on. As soon as that team was assembled, we brought back the person that we knew had the most expertise in this, one of our former emergency management directors with decades of experience. We wanted to make sure we had every possible resource, past and present, in that room, in one place, making sure that our effort was coordinated. We also began contacting outside agencies immediately as well, leaving messages, and then when they were actually available. Our main point of contact, and this is just how the state's system of operation works, is MEMA, the Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency. Everything that we need in terms of resources, in terms of recovery, goes through MEMA. So we made sure that we opened up those lines of contact and have been involved in all the press conferences, all the conference calls, and so on. So the first 24 hours were assembling resources, getting hotline numbers out there so that there was access to information, and working as quickly as we can to bring in every private contractor we could out on the street.
Right. What sort of private contractors did you bring in? And did you bring in more than you normally have contracted for this season?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Our finance team was integral in this too, and our city solicitor, and we had every department working on this just to make sure there was, if there was an obstacle, that obstacle was gotten rid of as quickly as possible. So we made sure that everybody at the very beginning knew what we were allowed to do by declaring a state of emergency. It allows us to be able to procure equipment, materials, contractors much more easily, and we made sure that every department head who is involved in this response were able to know that information. We also set up 3 major checkpoints a day where every key person in the operation, again, came back in the room together, had everybody's information, and had goals that we mutually set, and then continued to meet.
And what sort of private contractors were hired by the city?
Oh, boy, that list is pretty extensive.
Sure.
Every people with chainsaws, people with the big, heavy equipment, everybody that had the ability to help clear roadways.
Right. Do you have any idea why, I'd ask Mr. Gantz as well, in Leominster, it's almost full power restoration, but out here in Fitchburg, still seems like a couple thousand people without power. Any idea why that is?
Yeah. You know, what I've seen in terms of the damage across the state, the biggest correlating factor that, you know, I didn't have to do a big study on it, but just looking at what's been happening across the state, those with more damage have had longer restoration periods. And that's been the single deciding factor. And the only person who was able to determine that was Mother Nature.
Right. It seems like people are getting increasingly frustrated with Unitil's response to this, but it seems like you've been reluctant to comment on that. Any idea on Unitil's response to this?
Again, that's something that there's going to be plenty of time to comment on in the future. As the Chief Executive Officer of the city, my first priority is the protection of life, and anything else that is going to hinder that, we're going to have to save for later.